owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt other.
You know what I'm saying? I paid the for the beat. I paid you for loaning me the money. You know what I'm saying? I paid you back your money. Now we splitting because you loaned me the money.
Yeah.
But you own my. I don't owe you a thing. Why is you holding on to my?
Yeah.
And that's standard. 2 cents off every game we sell.
They know what they're doing.
$50 game. You giving me 2 cents? Let me think about that for a minute.
DMX walked into a Toronto club thinking it was just another regular night to cool off and fade into the background until he locked eyes with Prince. Whatever happened next hit him sideways.
And sat down and schooled me. I felt like a little kid.
In a good way.
I felt like
he's the OG.
Like my
if you
grandfather
think about it.
smacked me like, what the f is wrong with you?
DMX later said it felt like getting checked by your grandfather. Not loud, not aggressive, just sharp enough to leave a mark. And if you really know DMX, you know this wasn't a man who scared easy. This was someone who openly said he could have made sure rules didn't apply if he truly wanted to. Violence never intimidated him, confrontation never slowed him down. So the real question hangs heavy. What could Prince have possibly said to a hardened street legend that stopped him in his tracks and flipped the whole mood?
We had a club. And Prince comes in, big security guard. We go inside, whatever. He's like,
He pointed at you and said like,
yeah.
You can't just say that, actually.
Yeah.
Chapter 1 starts in Yonkers, long before global fame entered the picture. DMX was born Earl Simmons on December 18, 1970, in Mount Vernon, New York, and raised in Yonkers. His upbringing wasn't chaotic by accident. It was built that way from the ground up. He grew up in a rough neighborhood, raised by a single mother, Annette Simmons, surrounded by instability. His early life lacked warmth and safety. Physical and verbal abuse were part of the daily routine, mixed with street pressure that never gave him room to breathe. By the age of 7, Earl was already cycling through group homes, learning survival instead of childhood. Even back then, there was something different about him. He connected more with stray dogs than with people, drawn to their loyalty, aggression, and raw instincts. That bond wasn't random. It shaped his identity and eventually his name. DMX, short for Dark Man X, wasn't branding, it was biography. Trouble followed early. In 1986, he was arrested for stealing a dog and spent time in juvenile detention before he even hit his teens. While others were finding direction, Earl was learning confinement, discipline, and anger management the hard way. Inside detention centers and back on the streets, DMX stayed busy, boxing, rapping, and carving out a name in local freestyle circles. His presence was intense and uncomfortable. He would rap with his hands cuffed behind his back at juvenile facilities or battle MCs in Yonkers parks after dark. This wasn't performance, it was release. He wasn't just rapping, he was letting pain breathe. The streets weren't a phase, they were stitched into him. Crime and survival sat right next to talent and ambition. One story says it all. While Jermaine Dupri was working on his album Life in 1942, he booked DMX for a studio session in New York, hoping to turn it into a clean promotional moment. Dupri even invited a journalist, believed to be from The Source, to document the behind-the-scene process, not realizing how real the situation was about to get. The writer showed up to the studio early, before the session even warmed up. Not long after, DMX arrived, flanked by his 2 dogs, something people around him were already used to by that point. What happened next wasn't planned and definitely wasn't approved. Before Jermaine Dupri even made it through the door, the reporter was already rattled. According to Dupri, DMX stepped straight to the journalist and started questioning him. Who are you? Why are you here? What do you have on you? No weapon was pulled, no hands were thrown, but the pressure was heavy.
What was it like being around DMX?
DMX was dangerous, man. Like, not dangerous, but he's like, when you around him, he's like, you don't know what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Very unpredictable.
Right.
Then there were the dogs. That was the real leverage. DMX used them, their stance, their energy to make the message clear. The journalist was told to hand everything over, pockets, bags, whatever he brought into that room, and he complied. No gun, no physical violence, just fear, authority, and control. The dogs stood there like security. DMX didn't touch the man, but the message landed.
He was born Prince Rogers Nelson. And by the age of 7, he was playing the piano. It's just one of the many instruments he's mastered over the years. He's written songs for the most popular singers of the day and has gotten countless awards. This is the baddest man around.
Most of the world only knew Prince for the music, the mystique, the outfits, the way he felt unreal on stage. The image made him seem untouchable and almost soft to outsiders. What people missed was how strategic and disciplined he actually was. Prince wasn't fragile, he was calculated, he wasn't just a musical genius either. He was a one-man operation. Artist, producer, mentor, businessman, and a hardline defender of ownership and control. By the time he passed, Prince had released 39 albums in roughly 40 years, almost one every year. On top of that, he reportedly wrote anywhere from 500 to over 1,000 songs, with many still locked away in his vault. Prince lived in the studio. This wasn't about rushing, it was about momentum. Engineers said he'd work for 40 hours straight, chasing the exact emotion he wanted. He often kept the first or second take, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest.
What amazed me, perhaps more than anything else, is how often I would come in and I'd see the mic in front of the chair in a sitting position. And you realize he had done a lot of that stuff sitting down.
He signed with Warner Brothers as a teenager, and by 1978, he dropped his debut album, For You. He didn't just sing on it, he handled almost everything himself, setting the tone early that nobody would ever run his creativity but him. He wrote it, produced it, arranged it, played every instrument, sang every note, and even engineered the project himself. Warner Brothers tried stepping in by assigning him an executive producer, but Prince shut that down immediately. He wanted full control, no middlemen, no opinion slowing him down, and he got exactly that. That level of independence wasn't a phase, it became his signature move. His real explosion came in 1984 with Purple Rain, both the film and the album, and that moment flipped his entire trajectory. Overnight, he wasn't just respected, he was unavoidable. Tracks like When Doves Cry, Let's Go Crazy, and Purple Rain didn't follow trends. They bent the culture around him. The world finally realized this wasn't just an artist, this was a force. What made Prince different was the refusal to stay in one lane. Punk energy, rock aggression, pop hooks, soul depth, all blended without asking permission. The same attitude showed up in his look. He blurred gender lines, fashion rules, and expectations without explaining himself to anyone. His image wasn't calculated for approval. It was built for expression. He reportedly had hundreds of custom high heels made over the years, often in deep purple shades. These weren't costume pieces. They were reinforced and designed for high-energy performances. Prince didn't rely on fancy tech or mass production. He wanted everything handmade, imperfect, and alive. Most of his outfits were created in-house at Paisley Park, based on late-night sketches, sudden ideas, lace, sequins, bold cuts, and raw stitching. Nothing about it was safe or sterile. Behind the glamour, there was constant tension. By the late 80s and early 90s, Prince was openly frustrated with Warner Brothers. The label's rule of one album per year made no sense to someone who could write songs daily. He wasn't slowing down for contracts, he was speeding up, so he took control. He launched Paisley Park Records in 1985, followed by NPG Records years later. Then the conflict went public. He changed his name to a symbol and appeared with the word slave written on his face.
As long as you're signed to a contract, you're going to take a minority share of the winnings.
This wasn't shock value. It was protest. For Prince, ownership wasn't a slogan, it was survival. His belief was simple. If you don't own your masters, they own you. In 1996, after delivering his final contractual albums, Prince declared emancipation and walked free. His new system allowed him to release music on his terms, including direct-to-fan models like the MPG Music Club and Lotus Flow 3R. Even then, the pattern never changed. Prince continued composing, arranging, producing, engineering, and playing nearly everything himself because control was never optional to him. Dirty Mind and the self-titled Prince album were early proof that he didn't need a crowd in the studio. He handled nearly everything on his own, stacking ideas layer by layer. Rock, funk, pop, jazz, electronica. He didn't separate genres. He blended them inside the same record, sometimes inside the same song. Albums like Sign of the Times and Love Sexy showed just how fast his sound kept evolving, dropping music at a pace the industry couldn't keep up with. In the studio, Prince wasn't delegating, he was dominating. He played dozens of instruments himself, building tracks from the ground up. He challenged industry rules by shutting out outside producers completely. When Warner executives tried stepping in early on, he didn't negotiate. He kicked them out and made it clear this was his vision only. Anytime Prince got the chance to speak on it, he didn't sugarcoat the industry either. He called it corrupt, straight up. His message was blunt. If you sign the contract, you're accepting a minority share of the winnings. Chapter 3 shifts the focus to DMX and Prince crossing paths. Some moments don't come with fireworks or headlines, they hit quietly, deep enough to make you pause and rethink everything. One conversation, one presence, one truth can stop you cold. That's exactly what happened to DMX. That person was Prince, and DMX wasn't the only one who felt it. Cat Williams has spoken about Prince as someone he respected and looked up to as well. But DMX wasn't just any regular personality to impress. This was a man wired for confrontation, not reflection.
It seems like Prince is a G, man. Every story we got, everything he seems good.
Everybody
love Prince.
who didn't know Prince, but would kind of make fun of the heels.
Picture the scene. DMX is in a Toronto club, laid back, enjoying the night after filming scenes for Exit Wounds. The music is loud, the energy is right, everything feels normal. Then the room shifts. Someone walks in and it's not just anyone. Prince. On paper, it doesn't add up. A small-statured man approaching someone built like DMX. What could he possibly say to shake him? But it wasn't just the words, it was the presence. Prince moved differently. He wore heels, lace shirts, velvet suits, carried himself like part rock star, part spirit, like someone untouched by fear or approval. To most people, Prince was mystery wrapped in confidence, hard to label, shy, arrogant, genius, sometimes all at once. His image had layers people didn't always understand. Some even joked about him. DMX admitted it himself. People laughed at the heels, the soft voice, sarcastically calling him Prince Gangsta, questioning how someone dressed in glitter and platforms could possibly be tough. That misunderstanding was exactly the point. That's what made what happened next hit so different. Nobody saw it coming. Prince didn't storm in or demand attention. He moved quiet but solid, the kind of quiet that still shifts a room. He spotted DMX, motioned for him to come over, and DMX did. Prince spoke calmly, but every word carried weight. He told security to make space, and they listened. Tables were moved, people backed up, half the club cleared out so Prince could sit down with DMX and talk one-on-one for over an hour. No entourage, no crowd, just them. That's what shook DMX the most. This wasn't a pop star playing a role or chasing optics. DMX had already been around heavy hitters. Jay-Z, Tupac, real power, real street figures. He had ties to dangerous circles and had stood next to men who commanded rooms through fear alone. He understood hierarchy, he understood pressure. But Prince moved different. Prince didn't posture. He didn't flex status. He sat with DMX and dropped knowledge. Not industry gossip, not fame talk, real conversations, ownership, purpose, life, legacy, control, meaning. And in that moment, all the jokes disappeared. All the stereotypes collapsed. Prince didn't just earn DMX's respect that night, he redefined it. Years later, DMX was still visibly moved when he spoke about that encounter. And when someone like DMX, a man shaped by streets, stages, and chaos, tells you to listen, you listen. Because sometimes the most grounding moments come from the people you never expect. And that night in a Toronto club, two legends crossed paths without ego, without conflict, without noise, just honesty, and something deeper than image. So what really happened when those two worlds collided? What did Prince actually say? Because from every version of the story, DMX did more listening than talking. Chapter 4 shifts into the part that stuck with him the longest. Masters, no exaggeration. DMX later said that single conversation stayed with him for years. An hour-long exchange with a man who had already fought labels, contracts, and systems built to drain artists. Given Prince's unique talent and battles with record companies, the message landed heavy. One of the main things they broke down was ownership, specifically masters. This is where most people outside the music industry get lost. A master recording is the original, highest quality version of a song or album. Every copy comes from that source. Streaming, CDs, vinyl, TikTok clips, commercials, movies, all of it traces back to that single master file. And whoever owns that master controls the money, the usage, and the legacy. That was the lesson Prince made crystal clear.
So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise.
This was the point Prince kept circling back to. Whoever owns the master owns the music. He broke it down in simple terms. Owning a master is like owning land. If the land is yours, you can rent it out, sell it, build on it, or leave it untouched. If someone else owns it, they make every decision and you're just living on borrowed ground. In the music world, most artists sign deals early on, that handful ownership of their masters to record labels. That means the artist has no real say in where their music ends up, how it's licensed, how much it's worth, or whether it ever gets re-released. When money comes in, the label eats first. The artist gets a slice, but never the steering wheel. Prince preached this constantly while he was alive, and this was the message he drilled into DMX. To understand why that conversation hit so hard, you have to understand Prince's own battle. In the 1990s, Prince did something almost unheard of. He went to battle with Warner Brothers over ownership of his masters. At the time, he was one of the biggest artists on the planet. The hits were everywhere. The influence was undeniable. Yet none of that changed the reality. He wrote the music, played it, produced it, sang it, lived inside it, and still didn't own it. So Prince made a move that confused the public and rattled the industry. He changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol. He appeared with the word slave written on his face. During performances, he refused to answer to his own name and insisted on being called the artist formerly known as Prince. People laughed it off. They called him eccentric, dramatic, unstable. What they missed was the message. Prince was fighting nonstop for control of his work. He challenged contracts that trapped artists and called out the music business for what he believed it was, a system designed to profit off creators while keeping them powerless. This wasn't attention-seeking, it was a warning. If you don't own your masters, you don't own your music. And if you don't own your music, you don't own your legacy.
All of these big deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is. TG Jakes, any of them. All lies will be exposed. That's all.
Prince eventually went independent. He built his own distribution, sold albums directly to fans, and even bundled music with concert tickets. This was before streaming platforms and social media shortcuts. He understood direct access before it became a buzzword. In the end, he regained control of his masters, but more importantly, he set an example that artists are still chasing today. Prince showed artists that saying no was possible, that pushing back wasn't career suicide. His interviews, his public protests, even the word slave written across his face made one thing clear. He wasn't scared to say the uncomfortable part out loud. Over time, his fight evolved. It stopped being just about bad contracts or faceless corporations. He started naming names, pulling the curtain back on real people he believed were helping keep the system exactly the way it was. One name that surfaced more than once was Sean Diddy Combs. Prince wasn't attacking success. He respected hustle.
There's a disintegration going on that we really have to address.
He respected vision. What bothered him were the alliances, the partnerships, the quiet deals that, in Prince's eyes, strengthened the same structures he had spent decades trying to break down. To Prince, the issue had grown bigger than just ownership. It became about influence, who had it, how they used it, and whether they were lifting artists up or trapping them in the same cycle with nicer packaging.
Only your masters. He explained how gave him the symbol.
All about.
He also worried about how labels had stopped caring about content entirely. The focus wasn't culture or values anymore. It was revenue, even if everything else got watered down in the process. So did Prince win? Did he flip the system completely? The truth is, there was no clean fairy tale ending. And as powerful as that Toronto moment was, it didn't instantly change the course of DMX's life. Not because he didn't understand the message, but because by that point, too much damage was already done. DMX was deep in contracts, lawsuits, addiction battles, and early deals that boxed him in long before the lessons came. DMX entered the game fast and aggressive. In under 3 years, he dropped 5 multi-platinum albums, a pace most rappers still haven't touched. The world saw the charts, the crowds, the dominance. Behind the scenes, the money didn't match the image. DMX didn't own his masters. His biggest records, including Rough Riders Anthem and Party Up, were controlled by the label. Once those are signed away early, getting them back becomes a brutal uphill fight. Expensive, slow, often impossible. Even after crossing paths with Prince, DMX didn't have the legal muscle or financial backing to undo those early decisions. And that's the part most fans never see. The industry isn't designed for artists to reclaim power easily, especially when they're fighting personal demons at the same time. Prince warned him. DMX understood it. But understanding the system doesn't always mean you're free from it. By 2013, the reality finally caught up on paper. DMX officially filed for bankruptcy. Court records showed he had roughly $50,000 in assets while carrying over $1 million in debt.
I wrote it, you know what I'm saying? I paid the for the beat. I paid you for loaning me the money, you know what I'm saying? I paid you back your money. Now we splitting because you loaned me the money. Yeah. But you own my I don't owe you a thing. Why is you holding on to my
Yeah.
And that's standard.
That gap is brutal when you consider how much money his music had generated for everyone else. Child support obligations, legal fees, and unpaid taxes stacked up fast. On top of that, his criminal record made booking shows harder, cutting off one of the few reliable income streams left to him. There were also reports that he didn't even have full access to his own royalties. That's the hidden trap. When artists don't own their masters, touring and performances become survival money. Once touring slows down, whether from addiction, prison time, health, or simply getting older, the entire financial structure starts to collapse. The music keeps earning, but not for the artist. It raises an uncomfortable question. What if DMX had owned his masters? DMX was never broken the way critics like to frame it, but he was worn down spiritually. He said it himself more than once. Money was never the reason he rapped. He wasn't chasing wealth. He rapped to bleed, to process pain, to make sense of chaos. But the industry he entered wasn't built around healing. It was built around profit. And when the checks slowed, the attention disappeared with them. There is no confirmed record that DMX ever regained ownership of his masters before his passing in 2021. Most of his catalog reportedly remained under Def Jam and Rough Riders. Over the years, fans speculated that his estate might try to reclaim them, but nothing official has been announced publicly. That's the quiet tragedy behind the headlines. Not just that he passed too early, but that someone who gave so much of himself never fully owned what he created. Even after crossing paths with Prince, the system was already locked in. It's like creating a masterpiece and being told you can never hang it in your own home. Still, something shifted after that conversation. Even if the paperwork never changed, the perspective did. After that, DMX started speaking differently. He talked more openly about the business side of music. He warned younger artists about signing contracts without reading them, about trusting too fast, about giving away ownership without understanding the cost. Even though he couldn't fully undo his own situation, he tried to pass the lesson forward. He focused on awareness, not blame. That's what made the message stick. Every kid with a mic grows up thinking the record deal is the finish line. Prince flipped that thinking for DMX, and DMX, in his own way, tried to flip it for others. He pushed artists to think beyond streams and applause. He wanted them to be more than just voices on wax. He wanted them to own their voices. That's why this story goes deeper than music. It's about legacy. It's about what you leave behind when the lights go out. Prince showed DMX that being a gangster isn't just about surviving the streets. It's about surviving the industry, about protecting your art, about standing on your name when the world wants to price tag it and flip it for profit. DMX may not have lived long enough to own everything he created, but he lived long enough to understand the truth behind it. And sometimes that shift in mindset is the real win. If you made it this far, drop a comment with your thoughts on this story. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and I'll see you on the next one.